the word was spoken.
Sam, you're here?
Yep.
Excellent.
And we're live.
Okay. We are still basically in the final battle of the big adventure you had in Schloss Karomark. The aberrant Promethean lays before you, slain by the beast of Lepidstad himself. Well, not quite himself, though, because someone was pulling his strings. And not just anyone, but Dr. Arronax himself had used an infernal apparatus concocted by Count Karomark himself to basically remote control the beast and bring it back from, well, let's call it death, and return it to first only to animation, but through that process apparently bringing him back to some semblance of life. So much so that in the end, the doctor was even shunned from the beast's mind as the machine overloaded when it got struck by lightning. And for a split second there, just a moment, the consciousnesses of Dr. Arronax and the beast had merged. And some of the bestial primal rage and power is still left in the doctor's mind as he comes to on the rooftop, like a tiny little dark red candle lit in the darkness next to a can of gasoline. The beast itself is slightly disoriented as it realizes that it's back in control. You get the sense that it was and had probably been there for quite some time, but had to take a back seat until this overloading lightning strike allowed it to retake control. But it doesn't seem to brook any ill will towards you, as it just drops the remains of its brother, letting it crash to the floor, and just with heavy footsteps goes boom, 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 boom up the stairs, up to that Iron Maiden where you had seen terrified eyes glimpse through the tiny little slit roughly at eye level. And it throws the door open to this terrifying torture device, and the limp body of Count Karomark himself collapses out of it, just falls out of it, and into the arms of his own creation. And a little breathless, he says, "My son, you've saved me." And then he falls unconscious. And Alfreda is calling for me. I'm sorry.
Well, that sounds like sounds that would be on a haunted castle, I guess.
Yep. That it does. So, Karnas, it seems that you just got adopted. You have a new father.
Well, could be. Well, technically, Dr. Arronax probably is not present at this point. He's currently would be on the roof, trying to come to his senses and grasp what the hell just is going on. Since he was in the prime vicinity of the thing that was struck by lightning. But apparently he was brought back to life by lightning, so he probably will be alright.
That's how it works, right?
Yeah.
Struck by lightning, come back to life. It's all fine.
I believe that's science.
Exactly.
It's just science.
Okay, I'm back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he collapses in the arms of his quote-unquote son. At this point, I would like to summarize a little bit what's going to happen next, just so that we manage to have a quick transition and don't linger too much. Because the beast, immediately following the collapse of his father, starts to howl like a wolf, as it is just overwhelmed by the situation, not really understanding what's going on, where it was, why it is back, why its father is in this terrible spot. And as you try to get to the Count to attend to him, at first the beast is just turning away from you aggressively, like growling at you. But then it slowly remembers who you are and what you did for it, and like like a giant animal, it slowly calms down and gently lets the Count, puts the Count down, then gives all of you an opportunity to attend to him. He's in pretty bad shape. He probably wouldn't have made it much longer, but you quickly managed to stabilize him enough for him to be able to make it through the wounds that this Iron Maiden-like construction have inflicted on him. I would assume you probably take him to the living quarters somewhere where he actually has a bed, and you put him down, and a little while later he wakes up, and with glassy eyes he looks at you and he says, "You came for me. You saved me. Why? Why did you do this for me?"
Well, it was quite simple, really. We were invited here as guests and wanted dearly to check in on you.
We grew fond of one of the residents here and figured we'd pay him a visit.
Do you have a name for him, actually?
I just call him my son.
Well, we are quite invested in the well-being of my son. We were there for his very unfortunate and unfair trial, but with good results, I may add.
He was on trial, you say?
Not on his fault. I believe it was more of a setup, a misunderstanding.
Oh yeah.
What for would these rubes try my son? He's a gentle soul. He wouldn't hurt a fly.
Oh,
I
all
think they
kinds of
just
things.
projected their own vices onto him.
Oh, he says, and he stares at the ceiling. And then he lifts his feeble fist and he shakes it a little bit and says, "It was them, wasn't it?"
Presumably, yes. It would help us if you could explain precisely who them is.
They came in the night I don't know how long ago. And there must have been a dozen of them. They pretended to be interested in my work, but I didn't trust them. I tried to send them away. First I just told them to leave. They kept insisting. And I sent out some of my creations to deal with them. They overcame most of them. They destroyed some of them. They left my workshop in shambles. They caught me, and they locked me up there in my own lab. They made me watch as they proceeded up the stairs to use my own bond slave thrall to get to my son. They must have done it. He would be able to help himself. I invented it because I wanted to protect him of his more basic instincts. But I didn't realize it could be abused in this way. I was a fool. I should have known.
And what of the Promethean that was holding you hostage here? Another of your harmless creations?
He was an attempt to improve on my earlier creations. But I went too far. I admit that much. I couldn't get myself to put an end to him, though, so I left him in my menagerie. They released him, and he vented his rage of years of imprisonment on me. He didn't understand that I actually showed him mercy. He wouldn't have lived out in the world for long. Irony, I guess, and I ended up being his prisoner.
Well, I suppose whatever rationale helps you sleep at night. But Herr Karamark, I must inquire, what is the purpose of all this invention that you do? That bond slave thrall device is quite fascinating. How it just takes over another.
I told you, after I created my son, and I saw that he had his own strong will to roam the lands, I was afraid that he would be misunderstood, exactly the way that it came to pass. Ironically, I couldn't avoid it through my invention, but I actually may have accelerated.
Well, I mean, not to talk bad about your inventions, but have you considered making him a bit more aesthetically pleasing? I can tell you, as someone who doesn't reflect well in mirrors, that if he were easier on the eyes, perhaps he wouldn't be so harshly judged.
Science
yes.
knows no vanity.
Yeah, unfortunately, the rest of the people do.
Well, they are just uneducated rubes and imbeciles. What do I care about their opinions?
I mean, I cannot dispute that, but it's just a suggestion.
As you saw, I have reined in my creativity a little bit after my first creation. I realized that the world was not ready for something as magnificent as the Promethean.
And to what purpose is all this, though? I see that you and the Promethean were not alone in your laboratory.
What purpose, you ask? Well, what purpose is my existence? I rule nothing except for this Schloss. I wield the power of creation as my last bit of power in this world. I create because I have to, because I need to, not because I want to. I am not a mad scientist. Don't believe the rubes.
Never meant to make such an implication.
And what are you planning now, Doctor?
I think I will talk to my son, and I will try to explain some things to him. And I guess I will have to clean up this place, restore my lab, my workshop, my menagerie.
And what if people show up again?
I have a sense that they got what they came for.
I would still advise to take precautions.
Indeed, very true.
Do you know anything else about your assailants?
I believe they were part of a cult. A cult that calls themselves
The Whispering
Way. You've heard of them?
We've been unfortunately acquainted. Another inquisitive mind, such as your own, was also being hounded by such, as you like to call them, rubes.
I see.
Unfortunately,
Professor Lorimer, perhaps you've heard of him.
yes.
Of course I've heard of the professor.
Yeah, unfortunately, Professor Lorimer wasn't as lucky as you, and he perished at their hands.
We couldn't get to him in time.
We, however, thought that his remains were unsullied and are resting in peace.
But if you've run into the Whispering Way, anything you can tell us about them, anything we don't know?
Can you at least describe their, thugs or the eldritch masterminds that conjure these demonic plans?
I know little about the inner of the way, but I know what they came for. They've mentioned a sea sage effigy.
It's sea sage effigy, the one that was. Arronax looks at his companions. That was stolen from the institute, I believe.
One and the same? Do you have any idea what this effigy is?
I do not. I only know that as soon as they had it, they left here.
But I'm sorry, how did they have it if they used your son to procure it, but but he was claimed at the site of a crime? Well,
You would have to ask them, but I fear that their cult numbers many in all sorts of places. Maybe it was as simple as throwing it out the window where somebody else was waiting to pick it up. I don't know. All I know is that once they had it in hand, they departed. My homunculus waxwood Which reminds me, have you seen him? Is he okay?
I believe he is.
He's fluttering around downstairs. Actually helped us to gain entry here and defeat the Promethean.
Good.
Is that what happened?
Good boy. And for a moment there, you see that this generally kind of snooty and cold man, you see him actually worry when he asks about the homunculus, and when you tell him that he's fine and helped you, you see a smile rush over his face, and he says, "Good boy." He told me that he had heard the cultists talk about the Shudderwood. I am afraid that's where they were heading next. I suspect that they would be going for Ascanar Lodge, since that is the only island of civility in the deadly depths of this dark forest.
Could you repeat the name of that place?
Ascanar Lodge.
Escanar Lodge.
There's an old hunting trail that starts not too far from this schloss. It is called the Silent Path. It is little more than a memory marked in places by...
Wait, the Silent Path?
Yes, indeed. I walked the Silent Path often when I was younger, and had more energy to seek out rare plants and active ingredients. It's about a mile downstream from the schloss.
Yeah, I believe we traveled downstream pretty often today.
I'm not the sharpest of this bunch, but does the Silent Path not sound a lot like the Whispering Way?
Probably why they chose it.
I never made that connection. Although in my youth, I was spared of the knowledge of this cult. But semantics aside, I worry about your news of the professor and the involvement of the Way. I fear that I may not just have fallen victim to a random crime. The machinations of this cult must run deeper than I feared. I am grateful for your efforts to save me and my son, and I'll be happy to instruct my bankers in Lippstadt to release a sizable reward for your efforts. I would be willing to increase that number if you were willing to follow the cult to wherever dark places they went.
We were going to go anyway.
Shh, Geier. We would be happy to do so, Herr Karamark.
Good. Good. Please, keep what you saw in these walls to yourself, outside and in the city.
I don't think they would believe us if we said anything.
And
But
even
you
if
can count on our
even
discretion.
if they did, I'm sure they wouldn't understand.
Oh, we're all too familiar with that feeling. You can count on our discretion.
Speaking of what we saw, was the mummy your own, or was it brought by the Way?
Oh, my mummy, he says. It was a magnificent piece. More than 15,000 years old.
Oh,
It
we
was-
still have it, actually. It's
Yeah, the mummy's
Just-
fine.
You did?
just outside the door there.
You do? Oh, I thought I was still hallucinating from the ordeal, but
Well, it did give us quite a fright.
I thought I saw one standing there with you up in the lab. Good. But do you think you could, do you control it?
Um, yes, I mean it does resist me on occasion, but I think I have it fairly well in hand.
I understand how these things go. If you could tell it to chain itself back into its sarcophagus, it would make an old man very happy.
Of course. My pleasure, Herr Karomark. Just I was wondering, before we make our way on the trail of this your assailants, if you and I might have a word in private before we depart.
Of course. But please, I'm still weak from all this time up there. But I owe you that at least an ear.
We'll give you your privacy.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
And he asks for some paper and some ink before you leave the two. And he writes down a note instructing his bankers to release 4,500 gold pieces
That's not bad.
to whoever is carrying this instruction. You then leave Evelyn and the Count in his quarters. Anthony, do you want to go to the room next door?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, at least we're getting paid.
This day keeps getting stranger and stranger.
I don't know. I think compared to what we've seen before, this is almost pleasant.
Maybe we should have gone to the other rooms at that day. Oh no, yeah, you would have
That
to
they
be
get
there
recorded,
for the
yeah.
recording. Yeah.
This
Well,
is secret stuff.
yeah. I guess this time we won't know what that was. So you say that this bond-slave thrall thing actually worked and reanimated the beast of Lepidstadt?
I don't understand.
I mean,
anything that's been happening from here. Just thought like people, whenever creatures came back, it was due to necromancy, not electricity.
yeah, it's just since the moment I woke up on the roof, it's just been a complete blur a little bit in my head.
Yes.
I remember vaguely having an idea to climb up, but I hope this won't have any side effects.
I'm sure it will.
Yeah, Arronax just glances at Geier in a very
What?
meaningful way, like. I'll just need to make sure I won't be rotting from the inside.
But Emaírel is actually going to bring up to the group, well, to the two of you, What do we do about the goats?
About the goats? We have goats?
Yes, we have goats. I mean, I believe
The figurines of
Yeah.
power.
I think Lady Evelyn has them.
That I do not know.
Mm-hmm. Strictly speaking, I'm not. It's not that I'm against keeping them, but well, it's Mr. Karmark's goats, so I guess we probably. Well, it would be proper to let him keep them.
Exactly.
At least mention that we have
Yeah.
them.
Well, did he see us use them, or we didn't get a chance to use them? I think we almost tried to use them.
I think one of them was Simon, the one that brings out Nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we used that one. I mean, personally, I am not opposed to having like extremely powerful magical items, but I, like our host here, I mostly rely on science.
I'm sure they'll come to be useful. I guess the whispering way with their every time more followers.
Yeah, I can't help but draw some perverse joy in imagining an evil cultist being trampled by a goat.
That would be a beautiful sight indeed.
I need a drink. Did we by any chance pillage the Mr. Karmark's wine cellar? I believe we did. I suppose we should return to Lepidstadt to recoup our power and sleep.
Is there not a town on the way from here to the Askaner Lodge?
I think it seems that the lodge is closer to here than Lepidstadt is.
Well, the map doesn't actually show it.
I think he said something like half a mile from here.
Well, half a mile from here is the road to the lodge.
Ah,
And where the lodge itself is anyone's guess. I guess we should roll knowledge geography when Simon returns.
oh, see, it is, yeah, it is far away.
We have a map.
Yes. And I believe we could spend some of this allowance that Mr. Karmark gave us to replenish my armor that was eaten by the rust monsters. Terrible creatures. I feel almost naked, and to think that as a man of science I wouldn't be used to wearing armor.
And I'm guessing you guys were keeping a respectful distance from the door to Karl Marx's chamber.
Yes,
at some point.
we were
and,
pillaging his wine cellar.
Right.
Well,
And
talking about pillaging.
a few minutes later, Lady Evelyn meets up with you.
Emaírel is going to ask her what we do with the figurines of power.
Oh, I suppose we ought to return any property to the to former Count Karamark that he wishes returned to him. It would be rude to do otherwise.
It's good that we are, what's the word? Of the same mind on this question. I forgot the word.
We are in accord.
Yes, that one too.
Yeah. Simon, does he actually want back like any of the stuff? Because I know we found like jewels and like valuables and the ivory goats.
Unanimous. The word is, yeah, that one.
Well, I mean, it is his stuff. So
Yeah, I believe it's mainly that the rod of fire extinguishing and the goats that are the very
right, the
powerful
rod,
artifacts. Huh?
yeah, and he has talked about how precious his collection is to him. So yeah, you feel like whether or not you feel bad about that, but you're definitely stealing from him. Took any of his stuff.
Yeah, I
So
suppose.
I guess we should probably give it all back then.
Well, I mean, at least the goats and the and the rod. What else did we snatch? I mean, the jewels. I don't think he will miss the jewels that much.
Did
And
we even pick?
We're getting paid.
Yeah. Did we even pick up those jewels though? I thought we just noted where they were.
Yeah. Yeah, the only thing that we have like explicitly picked up were the goats and the rod.
Yeah, and the sealskin coat and the walking cane. Although I'm not sure they are his.
Oh, that's right. Forgot about those.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a coat
Well,
out of baby seals.
if those are his, we should probably return those too. But if they're not, then whatever. We'll hang on to them.
Right now, that's your prerogative. I'm fine leaving everything behind. We are getting paid doing what we're set out to do anyway, so
Didn't Damarid promise us
Yep.
money for doing this as well? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay then.
Okay, so you're heading back to Lipperstadt? Is that what you're
Yeah,
doing?
apparently we are. We need to,
Okay.
as I mentioned to other people, we need to cash our check. We need to replace our armor eaten by rust monsters, and we need to sleep in a comfy bed and eat
I
hot
could
meals.
use a proper bed.
Yes,
I like the way you think, Doctor.
exactly. I'm being paid
I
very
wouldn't
well for
say no
thinking.
to a warm meal.
Okay. And let me just look up what the judge had promised. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the journey back to Lippstadt is uneventful. The Schloss slowly fading out of view behind you. Mr. Montiano, once again, expertly steering the carriage along the bumpy road of this backwater country in Finland. In passing, you see the trailhead that the Count had been talking about. It's hard to spot, really, but since you roughly knew where to look, you notice a little bone fetish covered by some browning leaves, but still slightly visible to the knowing eye. But it's not the time yet to chase the cult. You need to prepare, and you need to take up the judge by her word, gather your rewards, equip yourself, and then strike at what is hopefully going to be the heart of this strange conspiracy. The bumpy road turns into bumpy streets as you head into Lippstadt, and the carriage pulls up somewhere near the center of town, where you, I assume, decide to split up to gather the reward from both the Count's bank and from the judge herself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay. Who's going to go to the judge?
Well,
I'd be happy to
yeah, I'm
revisit the
assuming-
judge.
yeah, Lady Evelyn was dealing with Judge, and I suppose the rest of us will go to the bank.
Okay.
Actually, Emaírel will head out to the judge too.
Okay. So
Stick together.
in that case, I need who. So there may be spoilers involved. I think we were.
What?
And
You cut out.
there may be spoilers involved. I think we've been in a similar situation before. So, who's not going to see the judge can now choose to go to the room next door so that they don't spoil themselves. But it's also fine if you want to stick around. I'm just warning you that there will be things that your character will have no way of knowing if you're.
I suppose
Not
since I was sort of present when the first time Lady Evelyn was visiting the judge, I probably should record that part as well.
Okay.
Yeah, Geier can step outside. His knee is
Okay.
killing him, and every bone in his body shaking.
Well, it's not about Geier because he's not there anyway. If you want to
That's what I mean, like not to
spoil him. Okay.
spoil it. So I'll go to the room next door.
All right. Oh, I think I have to move you there, or can you click on it?
Nope, you have to.
Nope, worked. Okay, so the judge's house seems quiet as you get there. It is late, very late in the afternoon. The sun is already setting at this time of year. And the streets of Lippstadt are somewhat gloomy when you knock on the front door, or as the carriage pulls up in front of the judge's home and you knock on the front door. The judge opens herself and she smiles as she sees Emaírel and the lady. And she says, "Come in, Lady Evelyn. I assume we have much to discuss."
Indeed, we do.
And she lets Evelyn in, asking Emaírel to wait in the entry hall. She takes Evelyn across her little townhouse into the drawing room, sits down, tea already prepared, 3 cups on the table, and she asks you to sit, and then she takes a seat too, and she stares at you for a while, and you look at her old face, her blue-gray hair tied up in that really tight bun, almost stretching her face. And her steely blue eyes are still sharp as a tack as she stares at you. And all you hear is the ticking of the grandfather clock that sits in a corner of the room. And then finally she says, "So you saved him, hmm?"
Well, I and my associates did. I must confess that in this matter, I was secondary only.
Well, as you will see, that is a role that behooves a member of our order very well. You don't want to be the person front and center. Sometimes you just want to be the one watching, pulling the strings.
Oh, I assure you, I'm excellent at watching.
I bet you are. So tell me, in your own words, what did you find at the Schloss?
Well, first of all, I have to wonder how much I need explain. You have 3 cups of tea prepared here. Was it a simple guess that I would be coming with only one of my associates, or have you been watching us this whole time?
She chuckles and she says, "Perceptive, aren't you? Yes, I think you will make a great candidate. I have indeed been watching you, I'm afraid. Please, come in. Take a seat."
And Emaírel moves into the room.
Pardon the secrecy, my dear.
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a second.
Pardon my secrecy, the secrecy, my dear, she says with a faint smile on her face, almost a little, like a little prankster. And she says, "You will learn that even within our organization, everything is wrapped in layers of secrets and mystery at all times."
I see that. Yes.
"Emaírel," she says, and she turns towards him. "Tell me, how did our candidate hold up in the face of adversity?"
Well, she definitely has benevolence, although her manners might not exude that. As for competence, well, she is quite gifted in secrecy, as you can guess from her life conditions. She wields arcane powers that were quite useful multiple times, and she's learned her lesson when confronted with her own failures.
she has, you say. Would you agree, Evelyn?
I'm humble enough to recognize when I am out of my depth, as I have been on more than one occasion since I began traveling with this lot. And I've seen that there are times when I must rely upon the assistance of others, that I cannot trust everything to my own powers. So if this is the lesson that you are referring to, then I would say yes, I have learned it.
Good. She says, we all have lessons left to learn, though. But you are off to a good start, my dear. I think you might make it into our inner circle at some point. You, however, and she looks at Emaírel again, you have done quite well. I take it by Lady Evelyn's surprise that you have kept your secret and your true affiliations secret for quite some time. It's not a small feat. You have regularly reported what you saw, and you have held up yourself competently, both when having to fight evil in physical ways and when having to research and and learn about their dark secrets. Excuse me, lady. Lady Emberth, we're ready now. And you look over and in the corner of the room, where behind you, where a bookshelf had been when you walked in, there's now a little doorway, and a man with a golden sword strapped to a ceremonial-looking coat with a heavy golden chain that is crowned by a little scarab beetle. And on his head, he's wearing a sort of fez-like hat. And he respectfully barges in. And he says, everything is prepared. And Judge Emberth says, Emaírel, it is time. Rise.
And he does so.
And he is ushered through the hole in the wall. And before the Lady Emberth follows the two, she stops and turns and looks at Lady Evelyn, and she says, there's a time for secrets, and sometimes there's time for curiosity. You have earned your place. You may follow along if you wish. But I warn you, what you will see may not be easy to understand.
Yeah, Evelyn will simply rise up and follow after.
All right. So you climb down a set of stairs, a narrow staircase that connects to the secret door behind that bookshelf, and you walk up into a vaulted basement under the lady's home. It's dimly lit by a couple of torches. The air is thick and musty, and the oxygen level is fairly low, making you all slightly lightheaded. The incense burners that are on and are filling the little vault with a thin cloud of smoke are certainly doing their part to make this even more disorienting. And there's a little congregation, several figures in the fog, all of them wearing these sort of Osiriani-looking gowns with their golden jewels and their fist-like hats. They're all standing in a circle around a sarcophagus that is standing upright at basically at 12 o'clock of that circle. Lady Embereth points to a corner in the room, a dark little recess where Lady Evelyn should take her place. I'm going to assume that she does so politely and kind of blends into the background, while Emaírel is pointed towards the center of the circle. As he takes his place, the lady, the judge, speaks up, and she says, "Our friend Emaírel has lived a full life. He has seen many things. He has learned many things. He has kept many a secret. It is time for Emaírel to leave his life behind and enter true enlightenment." And then the entire congregation starts a drone sort of incantation. The words, if you understand them, they are ancient Osiriani, and they just form this this droning a wall of sound that from a slight murmur rises up until it fills up the entire room, mingles with the incense smoke to the point where the sound becomes physical and the smoke becomes ethereal, and it's just it's an almost transcending state of close to euphoria that you start to enter, until finally the chant is cut short by the sound of the sarcophagus sliding open, and inside the body of Professor Lorrimore, preserved like a mummy, dressed in the same strangely Osiriani regalia that the rest of the congregation is dressed in. And then he starts speaking. With his voice, just as you remember him in life, Emaírel, you hear him ask, you hear him speak, and he says, "Ask, initiate," and you know what you're supposed to ask. You've heard before that what your place is in this scripted ritual. But you only know the last question. You know there will be 3. But the first ones, you're free to choose. So, what are you going to ask?
So Emaírel knows that he has 2 free questions and then one last ceremonial question. Is that it?
Yes, that's precisely it.
Well, the first one would be, are we on the right path in regards to the Whispering Way?
And the professor answers, "The path to knowledge is always..."
You cut out for a moment.
the path to knowledge is always the right path, is coming from the professor's face.
Well, second question. What is the goal of the Whispering Way?
The goal of the Whispering Way is to destroy all life and replace it with the abomination of undeath. And with your last question, you know what you have to ask, and you finally say the words that you've been working towards for several years now. What shall I be called? Emaírel's voice rings out. And the corpse says, your name from here on out will no longer be Emaírel. Emaírel is of the past. The future belongs to Naėllaŕian. And knowing what is expected of you next, you shudder a little bit as you take a step forward, reach for the professor's lower jaw, which has been replaced, as you notice as you touch it, by a plaster jaw, since his head had already been brutally mutilated last time you saw it. And grabbing the plaster jaw, you rip it off and you throw it into the ceremonial bowl that sits in front of you, a little crucible, cremating the jaw in a bluish flame. You go down on one knee, the entire congregation falling silent, and then you feel the heavy weight of the full regalia of the robes of the order laid down on your shoulders. And you hear the voice of the judge behind you. Rise, Brother Naėllaorszán, and take your place among your new brothers.
You cut out again.
Rise, Brother Naėllaorszán, and take your place among your new brethren. And dizzy from the smoke and the scenery and the ritual and everything, you stumble to your feet and you take your place. And the ritual is over. Slowly, the group filters out from the basement room, discreetly taking off their robes, stowing them in inconspicuous bags, and in hushed tones, taking their leave, until only Emaírel, the lady, the judge, and Lady Evelyn remain.
I wish the professor would have been here in a different capacity.
So do I, Naėllaorszán. So do I. Well, brother, welcome. You know you have to keep that name a secret, I trust.
Of course.
Good. I know that you have errands to run, and you already have plans where to go next. I still owe you a reward, and I will make sure to have it delivered to you post haste. But for now, you must still be dizzy from this whirlwind of events. please rest. And if you have any questions, feel free to come back tomorrow.
Thank you.
And so she politely sees you out. How's Evelyn taking all of this in?
She's watching definitely with fascination the whole time, and just sort of keeping things to herself, keeping a bit of a poker face as she watches. And then as they go to see her out, she just pulls out the book from Karamark and hands it over to Judge Damarith, saying, "Some light reading material for the evening."
She sees the title, and you notice. I don't know if you hadn't been able to read it. You didn't understand, but she glances at the title, and then she smiles coyly, and says, "Thank you. I'm glad he is well." Old fool, she says with another gentle smile. Okay, so Sam, if you want to, you could take an archetype at this point, which is called Esoteric Initiative.
I think I heard of it. Let me double check it.
Wait, is that the one that I was? Yeah, that's the one I was thinking about. Like I said, you don't have to, but it's definitely an option. It would certainly fit well with your status within the order at this point. So take a look, and if you think that's interesting, go with it. You don't have to.
Okay.
All right. I don't want to keep Alejandro too long. If you don't want to have another scene between Emaírel and Evelyn and back.
She'll save her questions for another time.
Okay.
On a bit of an off note, if he is now known as Nebuzaradan, then how is he going to keep that name secret if he's to be known by that?
Well, only within the order he is known by that name.
I'm just having a bit of fun.
All right, so I'm bringing Alejandro back. Okay, so later that day, I'll step up.
You cut out again.
Alejandro, are you here, or did you? Okay. Okay, excellent. Because Geier certainly has some news he needs to share with everyone.
Geier?
Yes, Geier. Because you and the doctor, you went to pick up the money from the bank, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That we did.
And indeed, the bank went right away and fetched the gold pieces, the 4,500 gold pieces, just as they were instructed by the little piece of paper that the Count had given you. And the clerk handed you the bags and a piece of paper, and you just assumed that it was probably just that instruction that you had been given by the Count, somehow voided in some fashion or something, like a receipt, basically. So you didn't pay too much attention to it. But a little while later, you notice, or you realize, that the paper is different than what the Count had been using.
Could it possibly be another letter from our former friend, Mr. A? And it is.
Or a forgery.
My old acquaintances How unexpectedly delightful to see you again. In the aftermath of my servant's visit to Lippstadt, I fully expected that some band of adventurers would seek to penetrate the Schloss. But I would have dared hope that the band would be the same one from Ravengard. I must apologize for the difficulties you faced. The leader of my servants became incensed when his lover fell to one of Karamark's defenses and took it upon himself, after concluding his business here, to augment those defenses in hopes of inflicting similar tragedy on those who would surely come later. Still, you overcame both Karamark's and my minions' safeguards in marvelous fashion, and your triumph over the aberrant Promethean was truly impressive. For a second time, I find myself congratulating you for your efficiency in dealing with the aftermath of a visitation. After examining the possibilities, I don't believe that this second crossing of our paths was deliberate on your part. If I'm correct, as I always am, then I urge you not to seek me out, but continue upon your own path until fate once again brings us into contact. Thus far, your actions have not hindered my plans or the activities of my servants. Should that fact change, I'm afraid our relationship might become somewhat adversarial. Also, should you catch up to my henchmen, it is highly likely that you would end up in conflict with them, thus depriving me either of a most useful servant or a most entertaining band of adventurers. Perhaps later, once my plans have borne fruit, we shall meet each other face to face. Until then, I remain A.
Well, this news are not gonna go well with the rest of the group.
Yeah, it seems we've got ourselves a stalker.
He's taunting us.
And he's taunting us in the most... well... Pulp Fiction
it's
kind of way.
effective. I'm.
Huh?
It's effective. It's positively furious now.
I won't say I am furious, and by this point, I suppose Geier might see that there's like a pink spot appears on Arronax's cheeks, like that. But I must agree that this attention is becoming aggravating. I'm almost incensed myself to return it.
Is there any way? Is there anything we can learn from this thing? We need someone smarter than I.
Well,
Doctor, what did you?
well, we have someone smarter than that. We have Mr. Emaírel, who is specializing in who is specializing in pulling out information from objects. Does he not?
He will give it a try, but I'm afraid that this A person probably took measures.
He probably did, but well, we would be fools for not trying. I believe.
First, we need to find the others and show them this.
Indeed.
Yeah, exactly. So first you have to meet up again.
Yeah. So, like,
But I mean, we must be doing something, right?
well,
He's inflamed and.
so yeah.
So where would you meet up? What do you think?
at Arronax's home? I mean, he probably owns an apartment somewhere in Lepidstadt, as well. Geier doesn't own an apartment. He lives on a graveyard, right?
I suppose so. No, Geier doesn't have a home in Lepidstadt anymore. He used to sleep in kind of like a shed in the grave church, but he's not working there anymore.
Well, there's the inn that we used the first time.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna, Evelyn's gonna need to have somewhere to spend the night anyway, and stable the horses and everything overnight. So she's renting rooms there.
All right then. Then at your place. Well, in that case, Arronax, with his rather unnatural blush and a very incensed expression in his face, he will go to the along with Geier, he will go to the inn where the Evelyn rents an apartment, and well, we shall present the letter to her, and hopefully she knows where Emaírel is.
Presumably, we'll all like get together over a meal or something.
Yeah.
Yep, at one point or another, I
That's-
suppose. Yeah.
Let's say that's exactly at one point or another. You'll all find your way to the dinner table. Even
Oh,
though
wait.
some of you may not really feel like eating much.
Wait a second, I have a skill check
Geier
for that.
and Aronex, you can give me a perception check.
Right away.
Okay. I will just tell the doctor something in private. And you can choose to act on that or not.
Well, it's all right.
Okay. Yeah, so you gather for a meal.
Mhm.
And yeah, Geier, of course, has the money from the bank with him.
Mhm.
And shortly after, after you all gather there, brings even more money. A whooping 6,000 gold pieces,
What?
courtesy of Judge Embreth.
Aha. Now that's a very healthy amount of money.
Indeed
However,
it is.
yeah. However, healthy amount of money does not exactly buy us this unhealthy attention, and Arronax will slam the letter from Mr. A on the table.
Do I need to read it again?
I can read it if you want.
It's okay.
We'll skim it. That's okay. Adversarial, blah blah blah, da da da, and right. A.
Mr. A.
Well, just A technically.
I don't care.
Yeah,
I will
he's
call
not
him whatever
earned
I
the
want.
Moniker.
I mean,
Yeah, it would be improper to call him a Mister. We don't know if he's a mere commoner or something else.
if he finds it appropriate to sending us mocking letters in a supervillain fashion, then I will be mocking him the way I want.
Calm down, Doctor. It's
Like,
just a
His blush becomes shining a little bit.
unusual of you to get so worked up. Normally you're the
Well, it's
inflammable one.
very unusual for me to gain letters from secret admirers.
Well, especially secret admirers that are
Evil.
linked to some occult conspiracy.
What I would like to know is how this Mr. A knows so much about our activities, when, as far as I'm aware, we are entirely unobserved.
Well, they did have powerful spellcasters at the Schloss, so I imagine divination magic wouldn't be out of reach.
Speaking of divination magic, Mr. Emaírel, could you possibly try to employ some of yours on this letter?
Let me see that. So if the item was last used no longer than 1 day ago per class level, so if it was handled less than 7 days ago, I can learn one piece of information about the last creature to use the item.
Presumably the last person would be the person who wrote on it, not people who read it.
What was that ability called again?
I'll paste it in Roll20.
Mhm. Mhm, mhm, mhm. Okay. Um, so you try to tune in, and it's you feel like somebody took great care to make this hard to trace by any arcane means, at least. But you're not relying on such academic ways. You tap into something more raw, and you are rewarded not by a vision or an actual physical view of the person or whatever, but by an emotion. And as you touch it, and you feel for the emotional state of the author of this, you just feel so superior. You feel like you are better than every other person in this room, everyone in this city, everyone in this country, and possibly even the world. And everyone who doesn't understand that is just a feeble-minded idiot. And you gently put down the letter again, feeling like you need to take a nice soak in a tub somewhere to get all of that arrogance washed out.
Well, it seems to come from someone who's very confident in his abilities.
I mean, we could gather that from the writing.
Yeah, well, I mean, at least now we know that apparently he's honest in his tendencies. So that's, however, not exactly reassuring part, I'm afraid.
Well, sure, we have corroboration, but no idea who it could have been.
Sounds like a megalomaniac.
Oh, you must know a few of those in your circles, huh?
One or two. Most of them don't bother to stir from their manses.
Well, this one got restless.
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't seem that this letter tells us much more than what it tells us on the page.
Do we
If
have?
anything,
Yeah.
I just feel observed, but
Yeah.
there's not much we can do about it.
Yeah. At this point, Arronax will start like pacing back and forth, looking for some what's the word? Horizontal surface, and he'll produce a piece of chalk and just start like writing the information that he knows. So this apparently Mr. A, he like,
Just A.
huh?
Just A.
No, mister.
Fine. And he like some erases Mr. A and writes just A. Like, apparently he has minions. Apparently he has methods of spying on us, and apparently he has very, very resourceful, very, very deep pockets to have minions that are very high spellcasters. Do we know any people like that? Whose initials start with A? Because I'm not sure he's lying about that, considering what we learned of him. And
Also, this mention of a lover dying in Karamak's defenses. Did we see any body that might fit that description?
As a matter of fact, I don't think we came across any bodies.
It might be worth asking Rolf and Karamak.
well, we will be going there anyway in that direction.
Not sure how much we'll find after a few days. You know, that with nature, decomposition, wolves.
Well, since they got what they wanted and they left, I imagine that they would take the body of a companion along with them.
Not if it fell in the water. Doctor, did you see any bodies when you fell?
Well, as a matter of fact, I almost saw my own body in there, but other than that, I was too busy trying to fight for my life. I'm sorry.
I do wonder what of Karamark's defenses was successful against a member of their cult. It would be helpful and perhaps give us a hint in how we might defend ourselves against them ourselves.
Well, I mean, considering that his defenses with summoned creatures almost ended us as well, so... And they did end me
you.
at one point. His, like, his floor cleaner seems to be quite capable. So, I suppose he has plenty of tricks and trinkets up his sleeve to deal even with powerful wizards. And at this point, Arronax will ruffle through the party loot, and he produced the first mysterious letter. Trying to compare them and look for the clues.
Well, I mean, one way or another, we have one path to take. And my bones are hurting, so are we gonna get a meal?
Oh, right. And at this point, Arronax will immediately bolt to the kitchen and see what his roll 14 prepared for us. Well, I suppose it would be something not toxic.
It's an inn, so I doubt that he's allowed in the.
Oh, I don't know. Did we meet at Arronax's house or?
I
at
thought
the
we were at the inn.
tavern?
Yeah, that's
well.
what I thought.
Then he is not.
I mean, we can be at Arronax's house and see why not.
Yeah, it really doesn't
Be
make
curious
a
to see where he lives.
I just misunderstood that. I thought we were at the.
Yo, what's up, fellow adventurers? This is my crypt.
Yeah, this is my. Although, if we
More like
would,
crypt, I guess.
that's very
I
funny.
can't believe I didn't come up with that.
Yeah.
Although if we compare his house to apartments that Evelyn would rent, it probably will be tiny and cramped.
So let's just assume that you're in
Yeah.
Arronax's house and he's preparing a meal for you, and 14 is decent. It's filling. It's not bad.
It's chicken.
It's nothing really to write home about either. But after everything you've been through, it might actually taste like one of the best meals you've had in your life. Just being able to sit around a table with some people who you may actually at this point be tempted to call your friends or something similar.
Well, when
And
people die together,
just have a meal like regular people and not the adventurers in the eye of a conspiracy storm that somehow involves an evil cult, a sea sage effigy, and a dead professor. The night is quite restful. It's good to be able to finally sleep. It helps that there's a new moon outside, and the night is nice and dark. And so it takes quite a while until the first light of the morning wakes you up. And since it's already late in the year, that is not too early in terms of time of day. So you, like I said, feel quite rested. Not necessarily ready for what lies ahead, but at least rested. The Shadowwood is what Karamark mentioned. Give me knowledge locals, please.
I will say that when Evelyn catches up with everyone, she does look decidedly unrested.
well, Arronax actually is not
Okay.
very well rested as well. He had nightmares.
Okay.
Nobody slept.
I think there's Lady Evelyn's. Yep, there it is. Okay. So I guess Emaírel, Doctor, and Geier, you're sort of chatting about Shadowwood. Well, I wonder. Certainly, it doesn't sound too inviting. Silent path. All you know are the little tidbits that Count Karamark had mentioned, and it is only until Lady Evelyn enters the room, and she quietly makes herself heard with a little cough, and she says, something along the lines of, "Oh, so I guess you gentlemen have never heard of the natives of the Shadowwood?"
No,
Natives?
just stories, aren't there? Aren't they?
And that's where I wanted to end the session because my voice is giving up.
Well, that's alright. I still will need some. We still need some time to buy our new armor. I want.
Yeah, that's fine, but we can do that offline.
Yeah.
But also, you get another draw from the hero deck because you have successfully finished an adventure.
Yay.
Hey.
I will deal a card to Emaṛel. Nope, one card to. Oh man, my throat.
Looks like Roman armor.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were allowed to make Roman centurions in this game.
Oh, of course we are. I mean, what's the
There
archetype?
isn't really a Rome equivalent in the setting, I don't think. There's a
I
Greek one.
I think Andorran is kinda sorta like Eastern Rome.
Aroden?
I mean, they all like gold and eagles and with blue the velvet and stuff.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I mean, they
All right,
yeah,
everyone should have gotten
Mhm.
a card. Talk about what you got.
they all have these fancy golden swords. With eagles. The publication. What is that?
Well, I've got the foreign trader. I don't know what that means.
The foreign trader. Let's see. Some links in the journal to make it easier to. I'll find out what that means. List of the cards. So the foreign trader is a neutral card of intelligence. So being an intelligence card, you can spend it to recall a spell you have already cast or to gain another use of a special ability that is otherwise. And with it being a neutral card, you may gain a one-time insight into the future as the spell Augury, using your character level as your caster level.
I like it.
That is actually quite fitting, I think, for Evelyn.
I got the Mountain Man.
The what man?
Mountain Man.
Oh, the Mountain Man. Chaotic neutral card of Constitution. Constitution means you can spend this card on your turn to gain an additional standard or move action. That's big.
That's
And it being, what did I say? Chaotic neutral. You can use it to gain the effects of rage as the spell.
Ooh.
and publication.
I think it's Publican, but I'm
Publican.
not sure.
Yeah, maybe publican. Yes.
It's a chaotic card, a chaotic good card of wisdom. And that means if you feel stuck at some point in the adventure, you use the card to petition the GM for a hint about what to do next.
Now that's power. That's power.
That is powerful.
That is powerful, especially because it says if the GM then you don't spend the card. So you definitely get something out of it. And chaotic good means you can also spend it to receive a +4 circumstance bonus on one CMB check to avoid or escape a grapple, or on one escape artist check.
That's supremely useful as well.
It can be a lifesaver.
I don't get mine. It's called the joke.
Well, it's a card of intelligence.
Yeah, it does have a book on the top right
Nice. So yeah, so that also means that you can use it to cast a spell that you have, or basically get another spell per day. when you spend it. Or since it's chaotic good, you can also receive that +4 circumstance bonus on CMB check to avoid or escape a.
That is a very handy one.
Yeah. I think everybody got kind of the right card for their character.
Yeah.
And don't forget that you still have the Uprising
Mm-hmm.
as a party card, basically.
And
And you
Hidden
have
Truth.
the Hidden Truth as the other card.
Yeah. One day we'll remember to use the Uprising. I don't know, we haven't really like faced off against a large pack of enemies though.
Yeah, and
But when we do, we'll be ready.
yeah, and considering that now you have, well, I mean, we have Arronax has 46 bomb damage. I don't think any crowd would be numerous for long.
We might be facing off against a pack in the future though, so
A horde, a gathering, a mob.
bit of a pack, because the werewolf pack, wolf.
Maybe a murder, of course.
I got it. I thought it was clever.
Thank you.
Speaking of thinking it was clever, how did you like the second book? All in together.
It was frustrating for a group of nerds.
Yeah, I think that's very accurate.
Too many walls.
Frustrating for a group of nerds.
Nobody told me there would be climbing.
I can't swim again.
Actually, when you think about it, I mean, I thought this book was really, really varied in terms of like the challenges, because there was lots of investigation, but then there was the courtroom stuff, and then we had a big dungeon at the end, and we had plenty of like physical challenges along the way. I thought it was actually a pretty nice mix of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was huge, basically, in scope. Like
Yeah.
what they managed to cram into the page count, I think was quite impressive.
Yeah,
I-
this could have
I-
been like
The trial could have been the entire adventure.
I was
this
pretty sure,
reminded
yeah.
me of like Dragon's Demand in its entirety.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I was pretty sure that the Schloss Karmark would be already third book. But-
Yeah, but it's actually not. They really managed to fit it in there. And I even cut a bunch of stuff from Schloss Karamark in the end because we were just kind of the pacing wasn't right for our group, I think, because it was just a dungeon crawl in the end. Strange creature after another, and there's no point. It's just fighting.
I
So-
did think it was an interesting dungeon crawl though. Like I enjoyed going
Yeah.
through that a lot more than like when we got bogged down in Harrowstone.
Oh,
Or
Yes,
not Harrowstone.
yeah.
What do you call it?
No, it was Harrowstone.
Yeah, I mean, know what you mean. The Scar Wall.
Scarwall.
Yeah, but I think I learned from Scar Wall to identify fun and thematic, and cut the ones that are just there to give you XP. Like,
That's true.
So I think all the encounters we actually played through were fun and made sense for the place that we were in.
Yeah, it felt connected to the story.
Yeah. And then I cut a few that are just like, for example, you remember when I kind of rushed you through that part of the menagerie, flooded sort of cages. There was an encounter with a giant mushroom.
That's cool.
Yeah, but it's just, why?
It's just a giant
just-
mushroom.
No reason.
you can just say, oh, you see the remains of a giant mushroom, and then oh, cool, there are mushrooms here, but you don't have to fight it for an hour.
Yeah.
Because it's just there because it's a curiosity. It's not like it's somehow connected to something and spores have infected whatever. No, it's just there to give you XP. Yeah, but still,
Yeah, I mean,
I thought it was very impressive how much was in the adventure.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I enjoyed that. I mean, if you think about where it started and where it ended up, there's a lot that happened.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
but we also really got a lot of mileage out of it because especially Evelyn was a great fit for the trial part, and had a bunch of character stuff happen that really blended well with the scripted parts. So I think our experience may have been a little better than if you just follow the major plot line.
That's true. Speaking of the trial stuff, I'm gonna do this one off screen, but Evelyn had a late night because she was paying a little visit to a particular Otto Hygar.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll perhaps write about that.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to hear about that. Well, she's leaving town soon, so might as well tie up some loose ends.
Good time to settle accounts.
Mm-hmm.
Away from prying eyes.
All right. Should we schedule the next session?
Yep.
Well, yeah. When your throat is ready.
I got my calendar.
Well, I wouldn't rely on that too much. So next week, we're gonna have my parents visit because it's Hannes's birthday. He's already turning a year old.
Ooh.
Sure. So it's not gonna be good. But the week after would work. And I'm actually quite open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
All right. Well,
But I'll
Friday
work.
is usually taken for me, but the rest is free.
That's gonna be a little rough on my end. It's a holiday.
Oh, it's
That's
Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna be with my family
Sure.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah,
But,
well, that's all right. We don't need to intrude on the Thanksgiving weekend.
But what about the turkeys?
Well,
I'm
you can
kidding.
make a turkey.
I'm jealous because
Yeah.
Thanksgiving has always sounded delicious.
it's always sounded delicious. You know, you can celebrate Thanksgiving anywhere.
Yeah, but it's not the same as having a house full of people bringing in food and cooking for people. There's something special about cooking for people, having a bunch.
That's true. True.
And an excuse like, oh, go around and be thankful for massacring the natives.
Yeah. Well, the turkey's good.
I mean, come on, everyone massacres the natives.
That was, I think, the point I was trying to make. Turkey, good.
Well, we just had a holiday where you traditionally, and I just want to throw that in just to
You cut off there. A holiday where the tradition is what?
to eat goose, like
Well,
the bird.
That's good.
Yeah. Is that where I was seeing it, like a fourth of a ganse everywhere?
Yep, it's Saint Martin's Day,
Honk.
which is
I
a
had to
dude
let
who
Dad
had
know
a,
today.
which is about a dude who had a big coat, and he was on horseback and rode past a beggar, and because the beggar didn't have any coat, he cut his own coat into two parts and then gave half a coat to the beggar, and apparently that's enough to be a saint.
Well,
You mean he didn't run the beggar over and then get the holiday named after him?
I guess, yeah. Well, it could have been worse. That's true, and I'm sure, as a person from his time, that was probably like, gasp. He's giving half his coat to a poor man.
And what are the lanterns for? Because we did that today. I know it was yesterday, but we did the lantern things today. And it's nice. It's fun, but I have no idea what the hell was going on.
I think that's some sort of pagan thing that's just been assimilated into the holiday.
Because all the songs were like, "Oh, I'm walking with my lantern. My lantern is the best. I love walking with my lantern." I was like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
okay.
It is. It's not. That's not a. That part is not a
someone really likes
thing.
lanterns and decided to make a holiday out of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what what it's about. Just about good, clean fun.
Also, I think I had more fun than everyone else when it came to building my lantern, and I am damn proud of how it turned out.
Your lantern looked amazing, though. Although nobody's going to believe you that baby Alejandro did anything.
No, but I don't care because
Mm.
it's the best lantern.
That was
Is
a
this
pretty
basically
awesome.
the equivalent of carving pumpkins?
Yeah, I'll
You
send
could
you a
say
picture.
that.
I'll send
You
you
could say
a
that.
photo.
Although people actually now have started to celebrate Halloween in Germany.
Huh.
Which I am all in favor of.
Yeah, I mean it's candy. But well, I guess they do both adult Halloween and kids Halloween.
I'll put it in picture day. The super lantern. First try.
Wow, I like it.
Yeah. Did you use an actual candle or one of those electric?
One of those electric ones. Like
Yeah.
little kid could barely hold it, so yeah, it was a lot of ruffling about. It would have caught
Yeah.
on fire so fast.
I've seen so many crying children with just balls of fire on a stick. It's
You
kind
know,
of funny.
an ideal weapon for a toddler.
Oh, on the second picture, he looks kind of sad.
He's just trying to get candy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
It's just funny seeing everyone in like heavy winter clothes.
The Arctic blast didn't get to you,
It's been so damn hot here.
really?
You're still in Florida?
Still in Florida.
I remember, like, I was there, like last summer, but not there. I was just in the airport, and we walked from the terminal to the tarmac for like 3 minutes, and those were the hottest 3 minutes of my life. And I live in Monterrey, Mexico. Just the humidity is unbelievable.
Yep.
Man. It's so crazy. And then you drive up the coast, and my parents-in-law are already skiing. Well, I guess it's a
Yeah.
long drive.
I mean, it is like a couple thousand miles away.
Yeah, right. It's yeah. Oh, and you just drive up half the globe, and all of a sudden it's cool.
Yeah, I forget. I was comparing latitudes recently, but I forget why I was doing it. But we're like Florida's somewhere